1 in 5 women report feeling emotionally overwhelmed on a regular basis. But here's the thing, that number's even higher for independent women, the ones who don't fit the mold, the Sigma females, the ones who think for themselves, move in silence, and don't ask for space. They take it. But even the strongest minds carry weight, and for Sigma females, that weight often goes unseen. They're expected to have it together all the time, to be calm, chill, unbothered. But inside, it's not always that clean. Sigma females aren't quiet. They're not loud. They just don't play by the rules. And that throws people off. They don't perform. They observe. They don't compete. They build. They don't follow. They lead themselves. Sigma females don't chase attention. They don't need approval. But that doesn't mean life doesn't hit hard sometimes. Being self-sufficient doesn't mean they don't feel deeply. Actually, it's the opposite. They feel everything, and they feel it alone, because they rarely talk about it. And when those feelings get heavy, when the world feels like it's pressing in from all sides, that's when Sigma females start to shift, not out of panic, but survival. So here's the problem. Most people don't know what to do with women who don't follow the crowd. They either label Sigma females cold or say they're too much, too intense, too private, too strong, too sensitive, too anything that makes others uncomfortable. And when society doesn't know how to place you, it tries to shrink you. Sigma females end up carrying everything alone. No one checks in. No one sees the storm beneath the calm. And the worst part, sometimes even Sigma females start to believe they're broken for feeling so deeply and still keeping it together. But that's the lie. The truth, their silence is strength. 1. They walk away, not out of fear, but peace. Sigma females don't walk away because they're scared or because they're weak. They walk away because they've seen enough, they've felt enough, they've thought it through 10 times over, and they're done explaining their energy to people who don't understand it. They don't throw tantrums, they don't slam doors, they just get quiet, pack their mental bags, and go. No drama, no warning, just stillness. Because peace isn't something they beg for, it's something they protect. And when a situation threatens that peace, even just a little, they choose distance over damage. Every time. A Sigma female doesn't stay in spaces where she's shrinking. She doesn't keep showing up where she's misunderstood, mistreated, or misread. She'll give chances. She'll observe. She'll wait. But once the line is crossed, she's done. No announcement, no explanation. She leaves the room, the job, the friendship, the relationship, whatever it is, not because she's cold, but because she knows what it costs her to stay. She knows the weight of unspoken tension. She knows the toll of constantly having to shrink, soften, or edit herself. So instead, she walks, quietly, cleanly. And while the world may not understand her exits, she never regrets them. Because leaving doesn't mean giving up. It means knowing when it's time to stop bleeding for what doesn't feed you. It means realizing that peace isn't found, it's made. And sometimes making it means removing yourself. Sigma females value peace over pride. They'll say nothing before they say too much. They'll take a solo walk over a loud fight. They'll pick silence over chaos. Not because they're passive, but because they're focused. Focused on protecting their center. Focused on keeping their head clear. Focused on what really matters. And in a world that feeds off noise, confusion, and conflict, that choice to walk away is power. That choice is clarity. That choice is freedom. And if you've ever had to walk away from something just to protect your peace, hit that like button. Seriously, it lets me know this is hitting home for someone out there. Drop a comment if that line felt familiar. Now, let's keep going. 2. They write. Not for the world, just to clear their heads. Sigma females aren't writing for attention. They're not writing for applause. They're writing to survive. They take the chaos in their minds and pour it out in ink. Because when thoughts get loud, when emotions stack up and words get stuck in their throat, writing is the release. It's the safe space where they can be completely real. No filter, no judgment, no pressure to explain. Just raw truth on a page. Sometimes it's messy, sometimes it's sharp, Sometimes it's just one line over and over again until the weight starts to lift. Journals, notes apps, scraps of paper, the back of receipts, whatever's closest. They don't wait for the perfect setup or the right time. When something needs to come out, they write it. It's how they process pain, how they name the feelings they've been hiding from, how they ask themselves the hard questions they'd never say out loud. It's their mirror, their map, their medicine, and it doesn't matter if no one ever reads it. That's not the point. The point is clarity, the point is control, the point is letting what's inside of them live somewhere else for a moment so they can breathe again. Writing helps them slow down when everything's speeding up. It helps them reconnect with themselves when the world gets too loud. It helps them hold on when everything feels like it's slipping. They write when they're angry. They write when they're numb. They write when they're falling apart in silence and no one notices. And in those quiet pages, they find pieces of themselves again. Sigma females are thinkers, deep ones. And writing is how they process thoughts that don't fit into quick conversations or small talk. They don't always need answers. Sometimes they just need space to ask the questions, to unload, to confess, to scream without making a sound. It's not always beautiful, it's not always deep, but it's always real. And that's what matters. Because writing isn't a performance, it's therapy. And Sigma females don't care about perfect sentences or fancy words. They care about honesty. They care about feeling lighter after the last period. They care about facing their own truth in the most private way. And sometimes, after the writing's done, they close the notebook, take a deep breath, and feel like they can take on the world again. Not because the problem's solved, but because the pressure's gone. Because they turned the storm in their mind into something they could hold. That's the power of the pen. Not loud, not flashy, but absolutely life-saving. And if you're feeling this vibe, go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. All right, next one's big. 3. They move. Long drives, long walks, long silences. Sigma females don't always talk it out. They move through it. When everything inside feels too full, too heavy, too loud, they don't explode. They get in the car and drive. They lace up their shoes and walk. They don't need a destination. They don't need a reason. They just need space. Space from the noise, from expectations, from people who don't get it. They roll the windows down and let the wind wash over their face. They turn the music up or leave it off. Sometimes they sing. Sometimes they cry. Sometimes they just stare straight ahead, letting the miles blur everything they don't have words for. That movement, it's how they breathe again. It's how they untangle the knots in their chest without saying a single thing. When their head is spinning, their body takes over. One step, then another. 1 mile, then another. It's simple, it's quiet, but it works. There's something about moving without pressure, about letting their feet or their hands or the wheel carry the tension out of their body. It's not about fitness. It's not about goals. It's not about anyone else watching. It's about feeling free again. Because when a Sigma female is still for too long, her mind starts racing, overthinking, replaying, creating stories that weigh her down. But when she moves, physically, those stories start to break apart. They lose their grip. Her breath gets deeper. Her thoughts slow down. And even if nothing's changed on the outside, everything feels different inside. Long walks in the morning, drives at midnight, sitting in still silence by the water. These are rituals, not escapes. They're how she stays connected to herself. They're how she remembers who she is underneath everything the world tries to layer on her. Movement is meditation. Stillness is healing. And silence, that's where she finds the truth. Sigma females don't run away. They just know when stillness turns into a trap. So they move. Not because they're lost, but because they're listening. Not to the world, but to themselves. To the quiet voice that only shows up when everything else fades. That voice guides them back. Not to the past, not to the future, but to now. To presence, to grounding, to calm. And in those long drives, long walks, long silences, Sigma females don't just escape the noise. They come home to themselves. They remember their rhythm, their strength, their softness, their edge. and when they're done moving, they return with more clarity, more breath, more power than before. Every mile walked, every road driven, every silent hour, they're not wasted, they're sacred. Hey, pause for 1 sec. If you've ever turned your pain into something beautiful, or even just tried to tap that like button, that energy deserves to be seen. All right, let's move on. 4. They reflect. Not overthinking, just processing. Sigma females don't spiral into drama or create stories that don't exist. They step back, take a breath, and sit with what's real. Reflection for them isn't about obsessing over what went wrong or playing the same conversation in their heads on repeat. It's about getting honest with themselves. It's about asking, what did I feel? Why did that affect me? What's mine to carry and what's not? They don't need an audience. They don't need validation. They just need a quiet moment to face the truth as it is, not how they wish it was. Sometimes that truth is hard. Sometimes it stings. But Sigma females don't run from it. They'd rather hold their pain in their hands than pretend it's not there. They reflect on their actions, not to beat themselves up, but to grow. They reflect on their words, not to regret, but to understand. They reflect on what was said to them, how it made them feel, and what it taught them. It's not rumination, it's sorting, organizing the chaos, sifting through the noise, finding clarity in the mess. They don't just move on to the next thing. They pause, they observe, they notice patterns, and they make quiet adjustments, not out of fear, but wisdom. Sigma females know that silence is where the real answers live, so they sit in it, not rushing, not forcing it, just letting things rise to the surface in their own time. It could be in the middle of the night, during a slow morning, on the floor of the shower, in a parked car. Wherever it happens, they let it happen. They aren't afraid of being alone with their thoughts. That's where they recharge. That's where they realign. They don't need noise to feel okay. They don't need to be surrounded to feel seen. In fact, they see themselves the clearest in solitude. Reflection helps them make peace with their past and get honest about their present. It helps them notice when they're holding on too tight or giving too much. It helps them recognize when something isn't aligned anymore, and instead of waiting for someone to tell them what to do, they figure it out on their own. Quietly, intentionally, because that's who they are. Sigma females don't make reckless moves. They reflect first. They check in with their intuition. They process what happened, how it felt, and what it means moving forward. No overanalyzing, no spinning out. Just clear, grounded self-awareness. That's their power. It's not loud, it's not reactive, it's not dramatic, but it's real, it's steady, it's true. And in a world that tells women to hurry up, get over it, and move on, Sigma females pause. They take their time, they reflect, and in that stillness they find exactly what they need to take the next step forward, with purpose. 5. They create. Art, music, poetry, something real. Sigma females don't just feel deeply, they express deeply. When the world becomes too much, when their emotions have no name, when words fail in conversation, they create. Not to impress, not to be seen, but to release. Creation isn't a performance for them, it's a need. It's how they stay alive in a world that often feels dull, numb, or chaotic. They take what's inside, the mess, the beauty, the grief, the truth, and turn it into something they can touch, hear, or read. Sometimes it's a sketch that holds their silence. Sometimes it's a song that captures what their voice can't say out loud. Sometimes it's poetry scribbled in the margins of a book they don't even remember reading. Their art isn't always polished. It's not always meant to be shared. It's raw, unfiltered, honest, and that's what makes it powerful. Sigma females don't create to be perfect. They create to be free. In a world that pushes productivity and surface-level success, they choose depth. They create because it connects them back to themselves. When everything outside feels loud and disconnected, creation becomes their anchor. It brings them into the present. It gives them space to feel without judgment. It reminds them they are still here, still feeling, still transforming. They don't wait for the right mood or inspiration. They create in the quiet moments, in between chaos, in the middle of pain. It's not about having the right tools or being trained. It's about letting emotion move through them in a way that words alone can't hold. Sigma females create when they're healing. They create when they're lost. They create when they're falling apart and no one sees it. And what they make? It's theirs. A piece of their truth captured and safe. Creation becomes a kind of therapy, a release valve, a mirror. They might never show anyone what they make, and that's fine. The point isn't the audience. The point is the process. It's not about approval or likes. It's about being able to breathe again. Through paint, through melody, through a short sentence that somehow captures the ache they couldn't describe before. And sometimes, through that process, they discover something new about themselves. A piece of strength they forgot they had. A part of their story they finally let go. A layer of softness they didn't know was still there. Sigma females don't run from emotion. They shape it. They turn pain into beauty, confusion into rhythm, loneliness into color. They create not because they want to, but because they have to. It's how they survive. It's how they stay whole. And in a world that rarely gives space to feel deeply, creation becomes their rebellion. Quiet, bold, real. 6. They disappear for a while, to come back stronger. Sigma females aren't the type to announce when they need space. They won't text everyone about it. They won't make a scene. They just slip out of reach. No explanations, no big exit. Just gone for a while. They retreat. Not because they're falling apart, but because they're recharging. Disappearing isn't running away. It's a reset. It's a choice to protect their peace before the noise consumes them. When life gets too loud, too fast, too much, they know the only way to hear themselves clearly is to get quiet. Really quiet. So they pull back from everything, from conversations that drain them, from environments that feel off, from people who don't notice they're bleeding. And in that quiet space they face it all. The emotions, the fatigue, the burnout, the questions no one else dares to ask. They don't numb it. They sit with it, all of it, even the uncomfortable parts, especially those. And while the world might assume they're lost, they're actually in the middle of finding themselves again. It's behind closed doors, away from the pressure to perform or be okay, that they do their real healing. No filters, no pretending, just truth. They journal, they rest, they cry, they breathe, they think, they stop explaining, they stop performing, and slowly they start to feel like themselves again, stronger, clearer, realigned. This kind of disappearance isn't escape, it's survival. It's choosing solitude over self-betrayal. It's choosing growth over guilt. Because Sigma females know that staying available to everyone else while they're empty inside only leads to resentment, disconnection, and collapse. So they take time to rebuild, to recenter, to remember their own voice. And when they come back, it's not the same version that left. It's the version that chose to pause instead of break, that chose to rest instead of push, that chose to heal instead of hide. Disappearing is how Sigma females protect their energy. It's how they get strong without anyone watching. No one claps, no one sees it. But that silence, that's where the shift happens. And when they reappear, they do it differently, with boundaries, with clarity, with less tolerance for things that drain them and more care for what lights them up. Sigma females don't need the world's permission to step away. They don't owe anyone constant access to their soul. When they go quiet, it's not rejection, it's repair. So if they disappear, know this: they're not gone, they're becoming. And when they return, they'll be sharper, softer, smarter, stronger, ready. 7. They set boundaries. No guilt, just clarity. Sigma females don't build walls, they draw lines. Clear, intentional lines, not to shut people out, but to protect their space, their time, their energy. Boundaries aren't barriers, they're signals. They say, this is what I allow, this is what I won't tolerate, this is what I need to stay whole. And they don't apologize for it, because they've spent too much time before, being drained, misunderstood, and stretched thin. trying to make other people comfortable while abandoning themselves in the process. Not anymore. Sigma females learned that saying yes to everything is a fast track to resentment. So now, they pause, they think, they check in with themselves before agreeing. They know that no is a complete sentence, and they use it when they need to. Not out of anger, not to be difficult, but out of love for their own peace. They set boundaries with friends who only call when they need something, with jobs that expect too much and give too little, with relationships that drain instead of fuel, with people who confuse access with entitlement. It's not cold, it's not rude, it's necessary. Because every time they say no to something that doesn't align, they're saying yes to something that does. Their own healing, their own balance, their own mental health. Boundaries help them stay connected to who they really are, without getting lost in who others expect them to be. And no, it's not always easy. Sometimes people push back, sometimes they call them selfish, distant, dramatic. But Sigma females don't flinch. They've heard it all before. They've been guilted, manipulated, misunderstood. But now they see through it. And now they choose clarity over confusion, respect over people-pleasing, stillness over chaos. They know that real connection only happens when it's rooted in mutual respect. And if someone can't honor their boundaries, that connection wasn't real to begin with. So they speak clearly, calmly. They don't explain every detail. They don't beg to be understood. They set the boundary and let people choose how they respond. That's not their weight to carry. Sigma females don't just set boundaries, they enforce them. They follow through, and with each line they hold, they gain more energy, more freedom, more self-trust. Boundaries help them avoid burnout, avoid bitterness, avoid that quiet, soul-crushing feeling of always giving and never receiving. They've done that. They've lived that. They're done with it. Now, they protect their time like it matters, because it does. They protect their heart like it's sacred, because it is. They don't confuse being kind with being available. They don't confuse being supportive with being used. They love deeply, but they love wisely. And if that means fewer people around them, that's fine. Because the ones who stay, those are the ones who get it. The ones who respect their boundaries without needing an explanation. And that's the kind of connection Sigma females are here for. Real, grounded, honest. That starts with one thing: setting the boundary. No guilt, just clarity. 8. They let go of people, places, and expectations that don't serve them. Sigma females don't hold on out of fear. They don't cling to what's familiar just because it's comfortable. When something no longer feels right, when it drains their energy, clouds their mind, or dims their light, they release it, quietly, intentionally, without guilt. Letting go isn't easy, but for Sigma females, it's necessary. It's not about being cold. It's not about cutting people off for no reason. It's about choosing peace over pressure, truth over illusion, alignment over attachment. They've spent enough time trying to make things work that weren't meant to, friendships that felt one-sided, jobs that crushed their creativity, relationships that made them question their worth, expectations that told them they had to be smaller, softer, quieter to be accepted. They've outgrown all of that. Now, they pay attention to how things feel. If something costs them their peace, it's too expensive. If it makes them feel heavy instead of whole, it's not for them. And so, they let go. Not with bitterness, not with resentment, but with clarity, with love for themselves. They let go of people who don't show up, of places that no longer feel like home, of ideas about who they were supposed to be. Letting go is an act of self-respect. It's saying, I deserve better, I deserve honesty, I deserve to breathe. And they do. Sigma females don't chase, they don't beg, they don't force. If someone wants to leave, they open the door. If a chapter feels finished, they close the book. It doesn't mean they don't care. It means they care enough about themselves to walk away from what hurts, drains, or limits them. And yes, sometimes it hurts. Sometimes it's lonely. But they know that holding on to something broken won't fix it. They'd rather sit with the silence than keep pretending. They'd rather rebuild from scratch than stay stuck in what's not real. Letting go creates space. Space for something true, something healthy, something that actually fits. Sigma females don't need constant noise or company to feel okay. They need authenticity, and if that means fewer people, fewer distractions, fewer expectations, so be it. What matters is that they feel grounded, clear, free. Letting go is a decision they make not once, but over and over again. Every time they choose themselves, every time they stop shrinking, every time they say, "This no longer serves me." It's not easy, but it's worth it, because each release brings them closer to who they really are, more focused, more powerful, more in tune. They stop trying to fix what isn't theirs. They stop carrying things they were never meant to hold, and in doing that they rise, lighter, wiser, stronger. They let go, not because they're done caring, but because they finally started caring about the right things, about what matters, about what stays, about what grows, and most of all, about themselves. Letting go isn't loss. It's freedom, it's growth, it's power. Look, being too much isn't a weakness. It's not a flaw to feel deeply, care fiercely, or speak with fire in your voice. It's not wrong to want more, ask questions, or need space. In fact, it's rare, it's powerful, it's necessary. Sigma females feel everything, fully, unapologetically. And in a world that praises numbness and distraction, that kind of emotional honesty is uncomfortable for some people. But that doesn't mean Sigma females are wrong. It means the world's too used to playing it safe, too used to shallow, surface-level everything, too used to women who shrink themselves to be digestible. But Sigma females don't shrink. When life hits hard, when the world gets loud, when everything feels like too much, they don't collapse. They sharpen. They get stronger, they get clearer, they step into a version of themselves that's even more focused, more grounded, more real. They become the calm in the middle of chaos. The quiet power that doesn't need to shout to be heard. Because that intensity everyone says is too much. That's not a problem. That's the source. That's the fuel. It's what gives Sigma females their edge, their voice, their magic. It's what separates them from the noise. So yeah, they might feel like too much sometimes, too deep, too distant, too alive, but none of that is the issue. The issue is a world still trying to fit them into a box they were never built for. The issue is a system that rewards fake smiles and punishes quiet strength. But here's the truth. Sigma females don't break under pressure. They evolve, they grow, they rise, they figure it out. They adapt without losing themselves, and every time the world tries to water them down, they come back more powerful, more sure of who they are, more ready to protect their peace, their vision, their heart, because they know this isn't about being liked. It's about being real. It's about living from the inside out. So if you're a Sigma female watching this, ask yourself, what helps you stay grounded when things get loud? What brings you back to your center when everything feels off? Drop it in the comments. You never know who else needs to hear it. Your words might help another Sigma woman feel seen. And if this message hit home, don't stop here. Check out the next video. It's full of real practical tools for navigating mental health when you feel like you're carrying the weight of the world. You're not alone. You don't have to hold it all forever. Stay bold, stay grounded, and never water yourself down for people who can't handle your depth. You weren't made to fit in. You were made to stand out, quietly, fully, fiercely, always.